Ladies and gentlemen, greetings and welcome to Screen Scene, the show where I review a movie or TV show. I'm your host, Zelrix, and today it's time to hit hard with some 90s nostalgia. Being born in 1998, I am what you call a 2000 kid, so if I tell you that a product from the 90s had a big impact on my childhood, there must be a reason for that. That being said, the Power Rangers were always a big hit for me, whether it was the shows or the comics. So when I learned that there was a big budget film in production for the team, I had two reactions. The first one was the kid in me who wanted the film to be a hit so bad. Then there was the realistic reaction. The reaction that made me think that this movie would suck. You know, the same reaction you had when you learned that Michael Bay was rebooting the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle or the Transformers? So the 2017 reboot, is it a diamond in the rough or is it pure trash? Hang on guys, cause it's morphing time. The film opens on a flashback set during the dinosaur era. There, we learn that Zordon used to be the Red Ranger and Rita Repulsa the Green Ranger. So obviously we're setting sail on something different from the comics and the TV shows. And once again, remember that different doesn't mean bad, it doesn't mean good, it means different. During this flashback, Rita betrays the other Rangers to get her hand on the Zeo Crystal. What are the Zeo Crystal? Obviously Rita is gonna explain it in a very subtle but efficient way. Oops, no time, giant meteor crashes on Earth. We run into the first problem of the movie and perhaps its biggest flaw. Too much foreshadowing for not enough payoff. For those who don't know, although it isn't canon, it is wildly accepted among Power Rangers fans that the Zeo generation was among the most powerful team, if not the most powerful. This comes from the fact that this generation of Ranger draw their powers from the Zeo Crystals, and the Zeo Crystals are powerful items. Think Infinity Stone level of power. As a Power Ranger fan, I know that, but what if I wasn't a fan? What if I was just a casual viewer that saw the movie for the first time? Hearing the name Zeo Crystal wouldn't do me anything, and the movie will not explain to me what a Zeo Crystal is. So in the head of a casual viewer, Rita trying to get her hand on the Zeo Crystal is just a generic bad guy move. Right after the meteor crash, we cut to the present when we meet our protagonist Jason Lee Scott, who is trying to pull up a prank at school.
I just milked him. You just milked him.
It's actually kind of weird. It was really big, and I had to use two hands.
Stop. We will never discuss this again.
Not even 5 minutes in the movie and we're already jerking off cows. What was the prank anyway? What kind of practical joke requires you to get a cow inside the school? I want to know that! I need to know that! The cops shows up, arrest Jason, and we flash forward 3 weeks later when we learn that Jason has to go to detention every Saturday for the rest of the year if he wants to graduate. When did this movie become the Breakfast Club again? And we cut to what I like to call the Hollywood detention syndrome. Do you notice in movie and TV when high schoolers go to detention, it's always this big chaotic class with kids throwing stuff, while a real detention room pretty much looks like a bunch of kids sitting and, let's face it, not doing anything. Now we meet this version of Billy Cranston who is being bullied. That until Jason intervenes and slaps the bully. Because yeah, remember kids, facing a bully, you should always slap him. Then the movie introduces to Kimberly Hart, who in this version is a cheerleader who was sent to detention because she shared a nude picture of her friend. They're minors, right? I'm pretty sure that's illegal. Kimberly, what you did, that wasn't a joke. That was a sex crime. And then, have you seen how they cut her off literally? In the morning they got up, they said, you bring the scissors, I bring the picture. Then they went to the school, they had to turn back because they forgot the picture and the scissors. They got back to the school and they hid in the bathroom until Kimberly got there? Don't you have anything better to do with your life? I mean, it's not like you couldn't just send her a text that says, hey, we're not friends anymore. After detention, Billy hacks into Jason's house arrest device and we learn that he is on the spectrum. Pretty sensitive subject, but personally, I feel that it is great that we can have a superhero touched by syndrome like autism or Asperger. Then we meet our final two Rangers, Zach and Trinity, who is doing yoga on top of a mountain while listening to death metal. I can't decide if that's dumb or if I'm in love yet. And then we run into our second problem of the movie. Trinity and Zach are almost invisible. To be fair, Zach has a little character arc with her mom who is sick, but Trinity, she's the most transparent character I've ever seen. Both of these characters are just there to say that they got the entire team back together. And even then, we all know people wanted Tommy Oliver to join. At least this time they had the decency not to cast a black guy to play the Black Ranger and an Asian girl to play the Yellow Ranger. Okay, the little girly girl is still the Pink Ranger, but hey, baby steps. So of course they all meet each other, they find the crystals, and they get hit by a train. Because of the coin, they survive. Meanwhile, Jason's dad, who is a fisherman, fishes out Rita Repulsa's body, which was just chilling underwater at fishing distance for 65 million years somehow. So then the Ranger awaken, all fine from the car crash, and they have a very Spider-Man-y scene each to discover their superpowers. Now it is time for the Ranger to meet Zordon and Alpha 5 in their ship. They are there told that the coin chooses them and that they must become the Power Ranger.
Teenagers!
With these teenagers, then these teenagers are the Power Rangers.
We have a little bit of explanation on what the Zeo Crystal is. Nah, just kidding. We just learned that the Zeo Crystal is chilling somewhere beneath the surface of the Earth. What honestly, at this point, who thought they were gonna get an explanation? But he also says that the morphing grid is never wrong while choosing new Power Rangers, and once again, this is something you won't get if you're not a die-hard Rangers fan. Rapidly, the morphing grid is the extra-dimensional force that the Power Ranger tap into to get their powers, a bit like the Force in Star Wars or the Speed Force in the universe of DC Comics. Here we learn that the morphing grid is basically something, somewhere, that have some kind of power. And this time we won't even get a meteor crash to justify this terrible exposition. Zordon tells them they have to morph to get their power and their suit of armor. Unfortunately, they can't morph yet for an unknown reason, so they have to go through training without their armor. That's something we can give to this movie. In the original show, they get the coin and they morph instantly. Now there is a character arc, there is some kind of difficulty curve. Pretty decent character development if you ask me. Meanwhile, Rita is going on a rampage through the city. She's trying to get as much gold as possible to awake Goldar, a monster made of gold powerful enough to dig through the surface of the earth and get the Zeo Crystal. The Ranger meets their Zords, and Zack, as usual, screws up and is pissing off Jason. Jason and Zack almost get in a fight and are separated by Billy, and then we get perhaps the best scene in the movie. By trying to separate his friends who were fighting, Billy accidentally morph without knowing how or why, but this establishes Billy as the heart and soul of the team, so it gives much more meaning to what's coming after. Jason learns that Zordon needs the Ranger to be able to morph to open the Morphin Grid, so he could resurrect and get out of the wall.
I'm sorry to disappoint you. I don't need to stand here and have you tell me what I did wrong. I can go home and get that.
You need me out of this wall to help lead this team.
And this revelation leads to the Ranger trying to go fight Rita on their own without being able to morph. So it is a much more powerful moment when Rita catches them and drowns Billy to death. Yeah, to Rita's credit, at least in this version, she's smart enough to attack the Ranger in their personal lives. Because one of the die-hard rules of the Power Ranger is that they can't reveal their secret identity to anyone. So how come in most Ranger series, their secret identity is always known by the bad guy from the start to the end? What they don't get is that if the bad guys knows your identity, you don't need to keep it secret because your friends and family are already at risk. So at least this time there is a point to them having a secret identity. Losing Billy brings the team together and they get him back to the ship. With their newly found bond, the Morphing Grid finally open, allowing Zordon to resurrect. But instead Zordon decides to trust his team and to resurrect Billy.
Only one can come back.
The Rangers then finally morph in a beautifully shot scene with gorgeous lighting, very nervous editing, and honestly, some pretty decent special effects.
It's morphin' time.
You can think whatever you want, but you gotta admit that was a pretty kick-ass It's Morphing Time. So while Angel Groves is under attack, the Ranger have to defend it, using the Zord to fight, gonna be honest, a pretty sick final battle.
Go, go, Power Ranger!
Goldar reforms and is too powerful to be taken out by the Ranger in separate Zords, so they call to perhaps what every fan of Power Ranger was waiting in this movie, the formation of the first Megazord.
Sorry,
I
y'all.
think Kimberly needs to move our feet.
No, I've got the arms.
No, I do. I got the leg.
Your leg too!
So wait, now you're telling me that each Ranger controls a different limb of the Megazord separately? I'm all down to give a darker tone to a Power Ranger movie, but giving it a realistic tone, that's just a bad idea. Don't get me wrong, the Megazord had problem in the original series, but when the Ranger called to the Megazord, I always thought that there must be a psychic connection or something that made them one single mind. Because let's face it, a giant robot maneuvered by 5 different people with 5 different minds, that's just bound to fail. And if the movie really wants to answer the question how is the Megazord maneuvered, answer one other question. What is Jason's job on the Megazord exactly? Because he's basically the chest of the robot, so he can't do much. So eventually Goldar is defeated by the Megazord and...
Trinity!
Did they just bitch slap Rita Repulsa into space? Cause it feels like they just bitch slap Rita Repulsa into space. The Rangers win, Jason David Frank does a pretty good cameo at the end, and Tommy Oliver is teased for a sequel that we will never get. What is it with green superheroes and teasing sequel that will never happen? So that was Saban's 2017 Power Ranger reboot. And this reboot of a series beloved by millions of people for the past 2 decades, this film, well, it's alright, what's everybody's deal? It had an awful deal on Rotten Tomatoes and most OG Power Rangers fans were pretty disappointed, but honestly, I don't see why so much hate. Don't get me wrong, the movie is far from being perfect, but that doesn't mean it's pure trash either. If the movie had one big flaw, I would say it's the scenario. It feels cheap and it lacks sense. But honestly, what did you expect from a Power Rangers flick? And also, a movie is more than just a scenario. Meanwhile, the movie has good lighting, good special effect, the editing is more than decent, and goddamn, this camera work is just gorgeous. But these characters feel that they have an incredible chemistry. Most importantly, you feel that these people gave their 100% for this part, notably RJ Cyler, who does an incredible Billy Cranston.
Can you stop touching me now?
The main criticism I've seen through the internet is the fact that the Ranger barely morph until the end of the movie and that most of the runtime is dedicated to them training or their personal problems. To be fair, this is a true and valid criticism, but this is an origin story after all. The Rangers were more developed in this movie than in any episode of the original show by a long shot. The antagonist feels like she's just some cliche of a bad guy doing bad things to be a bad person, but to be fair, so was the original Rita Repulsa. The movie was clearly aiming toward a sequel, so I'm just throwing this out here. If the movie revolved around Rita controlling Tommy Oliver like the original show, ending on the Ranger defeating him and making him part of the team to set up a trilogy of movies ending with the Rangers defeating Rita, I feel like the fans would have been much more forgiving. Right now, there are rumors for another Power Ranger project in development, and being the massive Ranger fan that I am, I can only hope for the best. I'm just gonna end on this. While not being perfect, the 2017 reboot was definitely in the good part of what we can expect from a superhero movie, and was also a really entertaining Power Ranger story. This is it guys, tell me in the comments section what movie or TV show I should review next, and while you're there, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell to be notified when a new video comes up. Then follow me on Instagram, and if you want to support the channel, you can always buy some of my pieces at arpal.com or on Utip if you want some t-shirts. Then share this video with all your Power Ranger loving friends, and as always, thanks for watching.